join. So, welcome to our webinar today in somewhat strange circumstances, and I've tried to change the agenda and structure to reflect those, although I've kept the title the same, which is Quickfire Business Focus. Clearly the focus may be influenced by circumstances that are going on around us, and it's great to have so many on. I've already also relaxed somewhat I normally keep it to 5 or 6 so I can have a two-way dialogue, but what I've decided to do is to use a couple of different facilitation techniques, which will be a bit new to me, a little bit experimental, so just bear with me. We all are quite comfortable, I think, within Zoom, it appears. Things I will be using, or I would encourage you to use, is I've just covered a little bit the use of the mute. So most of the time, if you could be on mute, just in case there's any background noise, but what I will not do is kind of mute anybody. It's an open dialogue, and there'll be a lot of opportunity for people to share things. I prefer the gallery view, which is up in your top right, instead of the speaker view, because you can see different people. There are some contact details that have gone into the chat on the right hand side, and feel free. We will use the chat quite heavily, so if you haven't found it, I think at the bottom of your Zoom window there's a chat button. If you just click that, it'll open up and you'll see the last message there from Suzanne just with her LinkedIn. And I will be asking you to park some things in there when I ask and prompt. So we're going to get straight into it. I'm a stickler for kind of sticking for time, and it is quick fire. So the way the tempo is going to work is we're going to go for quick fire. And what I've done is, along those lines, I've created a bit of an hourglass that you'll see on screen. And when we go through our intros now, and I've sent you all an individual prompt, and what I'd like you to do, I'm going to go around and I'm going to ask you as a named person, so be ready for it coming to you. I'd like you to do a bit of an intro into what your focus is, what the prompt was I sent you, and kind of what you think about that. So I just want you to get ready for that. The prop that I've sent you, which is a simplified version of Big Picture, which is kind of this thing here. If you've got that printed out, then that's pretty good to use. And what I've also got is, what I'm going to do throughout is that I'm going to use this overhead view. So at various points when people are talking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate on here what I'm doing. And the reason for that is because what I like to do is to help people with Big Picture using these symbols, create connections. And I've realized the way I do that is I think about things in a certain way, and that often helps other people get the message across, and also maybe is a little bit of a challenge or a yes and kind of point. So you'll have a view about where your focus is, and what we'll be doing is using the Big Picture format to kind of develop that thought. So you'll be all at different levels of understanding with Big Picture. So for instance, in your prop that you've got in front of you, that's the customer journey that goes across from left to right. And if you just want to tear off or cut out those symbols that you've got, then you'll see me doing that. And when I start building up that content, what I'll do is I'll reshare that, because I realize when I do share that overhead cam, I think it takes off some of the views that you've got of other people. So down to a little introduction. So are we all comfortable that we'll spend a minute sharing with each other what the focus is that we've all got in the business? And if you want to refer to the prompt that I've sent to you, then that would be really good. I'm going to give you a minute, and when you see the hourglass count down, I would like you to come to a conclusion as the sands of time complete, and therefore we can move on to the next one. So I'm going to go to Richard Copley first, and then after that I'm going to go to Sean Liddell, and then what I'll do is I'll put in the chat box who I'm going to go to next. So Richard, over to you.
So first thing, apologies, I didn't print the prompt off, so failed to follow the instructions. My focus right now is on two things. One is not worrying about things that I can't do anything about. There's lots to worry about, and most of it I can't affect, so I'm not worrying about it. Where that has led me to is to focus on what I'm going to do when this is all over. So I'm not worrying about what I'm going to do during it, because I've kind of worked out what I might do to keep going. But my real focus is on what will my clients and customers be looking for when this is all over? What sort of state will they be in? And I'm very mindful that sometimes the future is not like the present.
Thank you very much, Richard. That's lovely. We won't hang around yet. We'll explore a little bit later. Thanks for that. Over to Sean Liddell, please.
Hi, folks. So my focus, I'm a mental health first aid trainer, as well as wellbeing and mindfulness practitioner. So obviously most of that is done face-to-face all over the country. So now the focus is going online, transferring that to online. We just had the okay this week from the accrediting body so that we can do an awareness, a half day online accredited. So that's fantastic. So now it's about several things, 4 things: building the offers, building relationships, training myself in the skills needed, such as Zoom. So finding out things like the space bar, brilliant, and adapting the marketing.
That's brilliant. Just as the sands of time ran out there, Sean, very compliant. I wouldn't expect anything else. And when the sands of time return, I hope you saw my little message to look at Lynn. What I would say is try and make some notes, because what I'm going to ask you to do in a bit is to work out which ones we want to explore a bit further, because we won't have time to do everything. Over to you, Lynn Paxman.
So I work with organisations, mainly medium-sized organisations, quite a lot of charities, on creating authentic cultures or sustaining authentic cultures as they grow. So my current focus is, I've quite liked working online. So it's how can I adapt the skills I need to carry on doing that, and who are going to be my future customers, because a lot of people who are my customers have taken a bit of a hit. So who do I need to be focusing on?
Lovely, fantastic. I've never used the hourglass before. It's one of my new devices, so I don't know if
it's a good idea.
Are noticing it or not. I was going to have my car horn to blow, but I thought it might be a bit too aggressive. I have got a bell on the shelf, but no one's been non-compliant yet. So over to Suzanne Evans.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I am an organisation change consultant, so there's a lot of that about at the moment. But actually my big focus is finishing my PhD at the moment. So I've been studying it part-time for 8 years. So the kind of quietness in client work is giving me a bit of time to get on with writing my thesis. So I'm trying to finish that off, also get some of the messages from it out there through LinkedIn and through other means. So that's my focus at the moment.
Very nice. And there was some sands left in the hourglass. What I was thinking is there, and I'm trying to multitask in terms of pick up, please do make notes as we're going through, because there'll be a theme to this that I want to draw out. So over to, when the hourglass starts, over to Ian.
Hi, Ian Pettigrew. So I spend my time doing leadership development and coaching. So I'm helping people to get the best out of themselves and others. A big part of that has always been resilience. And that's something that I'm particularly getting asked for a lot at the moment. I do a lot of work in the Middle East, a lot of which is online. So the Zoom and the breakout groups and making it really interactive is something I've got nailed. 2 focuses for me though. One is marketing. I've been lazy at marketing because I've not needed to, and I'm having to do that now. But also making sure that I get the learning out there. And I've realized I've got loads of stuff I've done in podcasts that I've definitely not made the most of. So using a bit of spare time to do something I should have been doing ages ago.
Yeah, that's a good one, that, Ian. I think that is a theme. I'm not sharing my notes at the moment, but the focus on marketing, like a different area of the business that isn't necessarily in delivery and operations. But that's one I maybe personally like to explore a little bit. So you've opened it out a bit there, and these are all things that other people can benefit from. So Tracy Murphy, please.
Hi everybody. Okay, so I'm very new to this. I started my own business in September, coaching, consulting leadership and personal development. What I'm concentrating on is working from home with 3 children back home, and my husband's working from home as well, and also being creative, because there's not a lot that I can do at the moment other than be prepared for when things get back to normal. So it's a great time to be creative and to start working on things that perhaps I've not thought about already. Okay.
Wow, love that end. Lovely. And yeah, we chatted about that a bit earlier, didn't we, Tracy, about the effects of the home environment and how that affects you. And what I would like to think and remind yourself is there is a bit of a prompt about thinking about your focus a little bit differently in the email that I sent, which we'll move on to in a little bit. Over to Chris Scott.
Hi. So my sort of little business is designing training and operational tools that support hospitality businesses, which obviously all shut about 2 weeks ago. So I think I'd already thought and had conversations with people, including Martin, about sort of creating things that I could sell to people, if that makes sense anyway. So this time has kind of given me time off doing projects, because my projects have come to an end, more or less, and therefore I can spend the next few weeks developing the things that I was thinking about, which is mainly about training tools, operational tools, and obviously there was a focus on going online, and I did some courses a few weeks ago to teach myself how to do e-learning. So I'm going to be creating some stuff in Articulate.
Very good, smashing. Oh, blimey, the time moved on there and I didn't get it. Are we okay to speed up and take Martin? Off you go.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm an in-house L&D consultant at the moment, working for a group called Cordant, and I'm going through redundancy. So I've been very comfortable for a long time. I find myself in a very uncomfortable position now. So I'm experimenting with ways to get my face out there and work with as many people as possible to think about what my next steps are going to be, how I can make it work for myself.
Fantastic. Very good. Thank you, Martin. And over to Tim.
I think Tim needs to unmute himself.
He's fine. I like Tim unmuted. No, I don't. That's terrible. Go on, Tim.
Okay, I'm Tim. I can speak silently. Like Richard and Chris, very much I think it's about seasons, and I've got a little video to share later on with people, which I think summarises things. I'm still fortunate because the niche I work in, I'm busy at the moment. I think people have got time, so they're coming to me. Most of the work I've been doing has been online anyway. It's strange being in a house with other people who are locked down and unable to work, but that's life.
Absolutely. So another one there about home environment, I think, isn't it? About that change and the way we structure our time, like environmental factors. Lovely. Thanks for that, Tim. And over to Michelle, please.
Hi, my focus, I have a behavioural profiling tool which we license globally. Unlike most of the tools, it's actually a face-to-face tool. It's done using jigsaws. So obviously that side is completely gone at the moment, and a lot of our clients are looking at us and saying, you know, how can we do this? So in actual fact, we'd started looking at the digitisation process a few weeks ago, beginning of this year. So we're kind of in the process of that. So it's for me, my focus is all about digitisation of a physical tool so we can get it out worldwide, and digitisation of a workbook so we can protect the intellectual property. So that's where I'm focusing at.
Wonderful. And I think there's certainly a massive theme around productization, if that's the kind of right word, packaging up, and that's maybe one we'll explore a little bit more in a little bit, because that's a little practice in itself. And over to Gary, please.
Hello everybody. I work with large employers and their staff health and wellbeing offer, and I'm doing a couple of things. So first of all, drinking lots of tea. So that's very important to me. We're exploring new ways of working. You know, this is not something that we're used to. We're looking at ways that we can support our current clients, in particular through social well-being and ensuring that they're connected to the wider organisation and its goals. And then the last piece is in line with what a lot of other people are saying about marketing and positioning. I believe that come the end of all this, there'll be a big need for social well-being and reintegration into an organisation. So we're doing a lot of work on that to be ready for that point to support our clients and grow our client base through that.
That's excellent, Gary. Thanks for that. So what you've identified there, you've already turned that challenge into the opportunity, which is very much something we're going to work on in a little bit, because that's a really good kind of positive mindset. So that's a good example of that. Thank you. And over to Steve. I think that will mean we've had everyone. So Steve, over to you.
Hi, I'm Steve Judge. So I'm a professional speaker. So my business includes me standing in front of groups of people, lots of groups of people, big groups of people. So obviously there's no work, there's no income coming in at all. So I've had to rethink about what I can do rather than what I can't do. And it's very much going online. So taking my keynote, taking my presentation online, free webinars or paid webinars, Zoom calls, things like that, but also helping my clients. So contacting all my clients, seeing what I can do, as well as writing my next book, my ebook. So keep myself very busy with 2 kids as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that. And what I'd like to do now, one of my little new things, because there are 12 of us and I'm really keen for us to work together. What I'd like you to do is just work together in little groups of 3. And when you come back to me, what I'd like you to do is post in the chat the advice that you would give for maybe other business owners that have not had the idea that you have had. So I'd like you to have a little chat in a group, and I'd like you to come back after 3 minutes and park in the chat room. Do it when you come back, not when you're in the breakout room. Park what that advice would be. I want to see maybe 4 or 5 lines of what your advice would be to other owners. So don't be scared, strap yourself in and go into your breakout room with your colleagues and come back to me. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi.
You're back. So
Tracy's
just
writing the stuff up for our group.
Fantastic. Have you nominated a scribe?
Oh yeah, she nominated herself.
If I can do it, I might not be able to do it.
If you could park your, what I've done is a little example in the chat as people come back. So I've said, get your stuff tightened up in the background, such as key messages and social profiles. Maybe one of the things that you don't ever have time to do. That's kind of back office stuff. But I know that's probably not the most popular or common theme, but please do park any other ideas and advice that came out of your little groups as you talk through. Great, I think everyone's back now. So just park your idea and advice in there. I'd love to see a list of ideas and thoughts that came out of your little sub chat. Now, for those not typing the advice, could you multitask for me? What I'd like to do is to choose 3 or 4 people to go into a bit more of an explore. Has anyone got any thoughts? It's not a formal poll, but has anyone got anybody they think we should explore more? Anyone's focus we should explore more into? I've got a little list here, but I'd prefer you to nominate. So if you could park that name in the chat box at the same time, and we'll kind of use it for 2 purposes. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. Nice. Okay, I'll reflect on that coming back. So only because I've just seen it come up there from Suzanne. Just can we go to Steve first then, if you're willing to share, Steve, just a bit more about your current focus. And what I'm going to do is going to give it a few more minutes. So I've got my 5-minute timer.
5 minutes, okay.
And then what I'm going to do is back to your focus. So just remind people what your focus is. Then after 2 minutes, we'll look for an additional connection using the notes that I'm going to have in front of you. Please play along with your own prop to see if anything springs to mind. And then we'll end with an opportunity. So if we could structure it like that, Steve. So just remind us what your focus was.
Okay, so my focus is how am I doing things differently because of the current situation. As an event speaker, it's very difficult to go to events. So, because there aren't any, so I've had to think about what I can do rather than what I can't do. So what I've done is I generally have a keynote. I'll go into it very, very quickly. So basically, I talk about my journey. And my journey is I had a near-fatal car accident 18 years ago, got both my legs wiped out, was told that I may never walk again. I went through rehabilitation, had to grow my leg back by 4 inches, the bone, learn to stand again, learn to walk again. Then I went further, set new goals. Got into the sport, swimming, cycling, eventually got into the sport of para triathlon, swimming, cycling and running. Set my goals, became British champion, European champion and 2 times world champion. I'm now a motivational speaker. I've set my goals in that to become a professional speaker, which I am, which I run my business in. So it's very much about goal setting and then working towards it. And that's what I do. So my journey, my keynote has a lot involved in it. So what can I use out of that to help other people? Now, we've just been talking in the chat rooms, and one of ours was to build, to have empathy with everybody, with what they're going through. So one of my, I'm kind of jumping around a bit here. Let me first of all split my keynote down. So I split my keynote down into what messages do I get from that and how can that help other people, especially in this situation. And I split it down into quite a few different categories. So I do talk about wellness within my journey. Well, that's really important at the moment. We've already mentioned it about keeping fit at home. I do talk about mental health. I went through a lot of mental health issues in the hospital and going through rehabilitation, using resilience to manage change. So that's a big thing of me about when adversity hits you, when there's change, how do I deal with it? And I talk about myself because I haven't been trained in this. This is just my journey. I have a story for all of this. I talk about how I dealt with it and what I've done since then. Controlling your fear so that you can achieve your vision, your goals. It's very much about goal setting and being the best that you can be. So I'm looking down at this sheet at the moment. I can hold it up there. This is what I've created. I think it's all back to front for you. But basically, you can see there's a section for every single one. Now what I've got is I've got those, and those could be a webinar. Those could be a Zoom session. Those could be a workshop. So I'm now thinking about how I can create those and pushing those out to my clients. Initially for my clients for free, because I want to help them and build rapport.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Can I ask a question then in the time we've got left? You see how I've laid out and interpreted. It's pretty rough, but what I see you've done at the centre of your operations and delivery, which is your speaking, you've gone through some kind of product refinement or reflection and split it down for adversity. If we grow it out, for instance, at the top of the big picture page, there's the purpose. So does that in any way change the purpose of what you're doing, or was that always the case? Was it a good enough purpose to allow this to happen underneath that same purpose?
So you're talking about my mission, my vision, my why.
Absolutely.
My why is very much to help people to find their vision and then give them the inspiration and motivation to work towards it and achieve it. So as long as I'm doing something along those lines, then that makes me really happy. That completes me. Doing these little workshops and helping people is still ticking those boxes. So I'm very happy with what I'm doing, and the clients are happy as well.
Yeah, and that's lovely. And the reason I've just put a challenge up there, whilst that's not maybe a challenge for you, if your purpose and why isn't clear, then maybe for others it won't be as easy, because they might have to reflect on what that is, because it's maybe not something that was clear or defined at the right level previously. So I'd just like to get into the opportunity, which I think you've made clear, which is this one is about in your operations area. And you could see the way big picture laid out. We haven't really gone for this area, which is the way you market those things and how you change what you do up here. But it's very much about the product refinement here, and that changes, and your other products and existing speaking things would remain. It's just these are complementary and additions to.
They are, and I think a lot of people have mentioned about doing things that you've always been meaning to do. This is called upselling, I guess. When I talk about on the stage for 45 minutes, what is after that? What do I do? Now I can deliver workshops. Now I've got workshops in the back pocket, and I can deliver those so I can get rebooked. So it's a benefit to me as well as the client.
Yeah,
Steve,
no, that's excellent. One area I would like to explore, Steve, if we were doing some business stuff, is this kind of area of the page here, how what you're doing here downstream from the customer, how you might reflect on how you position yourself. But for time, we won't. But I just wanted to create that insight. What I'm exploring is our ideas here to do something here, how it affects the different areas of the business, i.e. who the partners and suppliers, how that might change how you relate to them or use them, how it might change your marketing and sales, how it might change the way you do your management and admin. If it does it all, it sounds like it's a fairly clean and refined piece that you're working on. But for others, it might not be so, because their business might not have the clarity that you seem to have in your head and the discipline in order to go about it. And that was the thought.
Sorry, Martin, can I just add in to Steve? One of the things, the concern is it's push. And if people are doing things now just to be busy, it's about what your clients want. And at the moment, a lot of clients are on lockdown. And I can see people scrambling to be busy, to do things, to give stuff away free. There's a big danger that you cannibalize your business because you've given it out there. And the little video I just shared on the chat room is a clip from the Peter Sellers' last film, Being There. Yeah, I just encourage people, if you get a shot of that, when you've got 2 minutes, just look at that. And it's about seasons. Yeah, and basically this gardener guy ends up, and he says, and he's asking, for the economy's in crisis, what do we do? And he says, there are seasons. Autumn, winter, spring will come, growth will come in the spring. And it's about timing. So I think it's like that analogy. I've got no idea what people should be doing, really. Yeah, but if it's a season, you can't just push things and hope it will grow. I think there's an element of getting stuff ready. Going back to what Richard and I think Ian said earlier on about what can you do to get yourself ready for when the growth does come, it's then appropriate, and you don't find that people have given away their business or their advice because I'm doing it all for free and I'm doing these seminars for free and whatever. I just be cautious on that at this stage, but I still think there are things you can do that are appropriate in the season.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Thanks, Tim. What I've drawn attention to there is just to populate in more the marketing and sales spaces, what actually understand it's a bit of a reflection on what the clients want, how they're going to be pulled through. So it's using the time to become more knowledgeable and aware and sensitive towards the mindset your clients are in, because it just being busy in one place might not mean that you're spending enough time doing that. So that's it's quite a subtle one. So thanks for that. Can we go to Ian's actually now, because yours was in the marketing, on the marketing space. Could we just talk about the example that you used about where your focus is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've realised, I spotted in my calendar, it's 11 years ago today that I founded my business. So that had passed me by. And I've been really fortunate to be consistently busy. And even though from time to time I've created marketing plans, I've not executed them that well because I've been busy. And now I'm in a position where I want to be much more intentional about the marketing. So I'm putting a focus on that. Previous marketing plans, my entire marketing plan is focused on being helpful. It ties in with something else I've got, which is that as well as the work that I do, part of wanting to scale my impact means that I am producing some content for free. So things like a podcast, but I'm conscious that I think I've just published my 19th podcast. They're all about an hour long, and I tend to publish them, make them available, put them on social media. And actually, there's a real resource there, with lots of little sort of nuggets of information in there, and I've not made the most of them at all. So one of there's two things I'm now doing in my marketing that I don't normally do. One is that I am working through my podcasts, which are interviews with people about their story, about how they succeed. So like when Steve talked about his story, he said, this is me, this is what I've learned, this is what I've done. So I've been interviewing people and kind of making sense of their journey. And just this week, I've started to divide the podcasts into snippets of about 2 or 3 minutes long, make them available as little audiogram videos with a transcript on, and share those on social media. So they have a double sort of benefit in that they are bite-sized, they are helpful to people, and they also link to and highlight the work that I do as well. So it's not entirely altruistic, it's helpful for people, but it does showcase what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, just to pick up on that. So what I've noted is that's something that you had of value in your existing delivery operational space that you've identified as an opportunity to package up and actually unleash some of that value as sharing kind of the bite size and snippet version here, which is a reflection of what you would do if you were delivering a client. And I think that's a really strong pattern to take something out of what is delivery and see. As I don't know about you, you're probably more of a natural marketer than I am, but I'm much more comfortable in the delivery space on my feet doing stuff. I have to consciously and deliberately bring stuff into this marketing space. Anyway, I interrupted you just on your second point.
No, it's interesting that you say that I'm more of a natural marketer. I've got no idea where you've got that observation from, because it certainly doesn't feel like it for me. So I'd be interested to know about that. But so having thought through my marketing plan, which I've done on several occasions using a framework that I found helpful, the way of marketing that feels most helpful to me is just to leverage my existing client base. So I've been really lazy about asking for testimonials, about doing things like that. So I ran a resilience workshop yesterday via Zoom. The feedback towards the end was that it had been really impactful for people. And there were two people were saying, this has felt just as impactful via Zoom and as engaging as it would have done if we were in the same room. So I just thought, right, I need to be a bit better at marketing. It's great for me to hear that. So I just asked people to put quick testimonials for the program into the Zoom chat. And then I quickly put them into a graphic on Canva and shared them on LinkedIn yesterday. And that's the kind of thing I never do. How much of that is because I can get away without doing it, and how much of that is because I don't like doing anything that's self-promotional. Naturally, I kind of resist and shy away from, to be honest.
Yeah. That's lovely. Just on that as an observation there, Ian, the way I've kind of understood that and the way I like to make connections is that we have this loop kind of coming back, and the way I've kind of understood it is because we're in a situation where here are new clients, potentially that has maybe closed down, or we don't feel comfortable going to get new clients. So what we're doing is we're looking for the clients that we have got to kind of bring them back around. And you mentioned both a process to gather testimonials and also a measure of understanding how many of those existing clients you could bring back around. And the pattern here is, would you need to then do any additional marketing, or is it very much because of the value of the work that you've done, they would then come back around almost because you've asked them, rather than you having to refresh their knowledge of what you do?
It's a value thing. And so if I'm being really honest here, there's I like working. I enjoy what I do. There's value in the work that I do, and I want to do that. This is my business, but actually we're in a position where we could ride this out for a while. So if what happens is I have limited client work for a while, that's okay. But at the same time, particularly the work on resilience, I know gives value for people. So the kind of marketing that I am comfortable with is saying, look, if this is a value to you at the moment, this is what I do, but not being pushy with it. So that's something that sits well with me from a kind of ethical perspective. So I'm not pushing it. If this is my season to get more of my research done, that's absolutely fine. But I want to make sure that that people do know. Because again, being really honest, I think my marketing in the past has been to try and get to be best kept secret, do the stuff, but not necessarily talk about it that publicly. So I'm making a bit of an intentional shift there.
No, that's lovely. So there's at least 3 opportunities there, but I've only got 2 symbols. You started with a marketing strategy, the untapped value in the product, and then focusing the offering as well. So there are at least 3 opportunities there, and they're all connected together. Just to continue that theme, and thanks, Ian, I'm aware of time, just to go to Richard, because I know you talked to me previously about your version of refining your product and service, probably service more than product. Could you just talk us through that, your focus, and how you're going about that, and from what you've heard of Ian, how that compares? Hey there, Richard. You're on mute. Hi, Richard.
Let me start again. So earlier this week, I should have started a big contract that would have lasted for the rest of the year. I started work on marketing it a year ago. I've come to the conclusion it won't be there when this is all over. But what I was concerned with was document automation in law firms. It was a big law firm, wanted me to help them with automating their documents. And the idea I've been working on for a couple of months as a side hustle, and it's now my main hustle, is to actually turn that into a software service that will be different to what is out there right now. At the moment, large law firms use big industrial strength software that they pay a lot for and don't like and don't use properly. And small law firms use case management systems that they don't like and don't use properly either. No one gets any money out of it apart from the providers. People are largely dissatisfied, and no benefits in terms of efficiency or productivity accrue to the law firms or legal departments. So I've been working on this idea, found a piece of software in the States that is open source, so it has an immediate advantage over the big enterprise software, and that it's free. And all I've got to do is learn how to automate documents on top of it. And I'm not alone in that. There are lots of people who have got an interest in this, because in the end, what the lawyers do, apart from produce documents, I mean, they produce advice for sure, and it has intellectual value, but a lot of it turns into documents. And most transactional law is document based. So basically what I'm focusing on is, who will be wanting this a year from now, because it's going to be a year before we're through this. Lots of the small law firms probably aren't going to get through this. So there's a diminishing market. But what we know from 12 years ago during the credit crunch is that law firms in particular came under pressure afterwards to get their services tighter and more economical, because their clients could no longer afford to just pay what lawyers were charging for their services. Banks in particular became very focused on getting value for money. That value for money ethos will return, a year from now. I mean, it's there now, but it will come back in spades when people get through this and they decide they're not going to pay their lawyers anything they ask for the services they provide. So I'm trying to find something that is, overused word, disruptive, in terms of occupying a different place in the market space than there is today, to provide something, and that's what I'm focused on building. I've had to co-opt my younger brother because he understands the technology a lot better than I do, but I have got some skills to bring to this, in that I have both a programming background and I have worked in legal firms for the past decade. So I understand something of what lawyers go through when they automate these documents. So for me, it's just a time to focus on my future customers and to focus on a future service that I believe they will want.
Yeah, and in terms of looking at the connections there, Richard, the way I've noted it here, there's certainly an introduction of technology into that. The way that you go about that kind of switch into a technology-based solution, that's a process in itself, which is an opportunity around document automation. That's going to have an effect for your customers on the way that they go about their work. And how would that you said, how do we market that? That's almost it's a reset of the whole business model, as opposed to your exchange of your time for money. That's actually a product sell, and I observe that's almost the biggest switch of anyone who's described their circumstances, because you're going very much from a selling your time to a selling your product, which is almost a different business model. Is that fair to say? It's a big shift.
Absolutely. What I would have been selling this week to that law firm was a consulting-based service. What I'm trying to build now is exactly a product, and I'm trying to think in, as a product manager. I worked in the software industry a long time ago, and I'm trying to bring some of that discipline back to bear. Like Ian, I've gone and looked at my marketing. So one of the things I've done is refresh my website over the past month to try and build something in there that makes it look like we are a product company, as opposed to a one-man consultancy. I probably can't disguise that fact entirely, but that's my thinking. I'm trying to think as if I was the next Apple. Well, not the next Apple, but someone like the next SAP or someone like that.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest example. When I see a big shift in business like that, the arrows I've drawn out, by changing and introducing the product here in terms of technology, pretty much all of these areas of the business are up for grabs, need to be considered right up. And I know today we haven't talked about maybe the changing purpose. It would be interesting if you did have one written down previously. This would probably be good justification for looking at that, because the whole thing has got to change to reflect the fact you've got a product to sell at the centre of your business?
Absolutely. It's I think as Steve said, it's back to mission, vision, why, because this is a different mission, vision, why to the one I had before, although the customer base is still the same, or
yeah,
a subset of I might have switched the focus inside the customer base, so it's a different subset really, but you know, I kind of know who the customers are going to be. I don't know their exact identities because I'm not certain which ones will survive, but those that survive, I think, will be in the market for this service, this product.
No, that's excellent. And I need to unpick all this, because what I set out to achieve here is to test something which is, in a very, very brief time, is to gain an insight into what I call these connections between what people are changing in different areas of the business and how, in a systems thinking kind of way, that could and should impact other things. In some places, it'll be a time to reflect and not change the purpose. Another example, Richard, might be the way you work with partners and suppliers. This is another area of the business. We talked about marketing. We haven't today talked about the management and administration at the bottom. And I'm all about patterns. So when I do unpick this recording and listen to it back, I'm trying to bring out the key patterns, because I think if you can express something as a if X then Y and therefore Z, and that could be in the context of this grand shift in the way people are thinking about the business, that connectedness and that pattern in whatever form it's represented, whether visually or in text, could be useful for people. That's what I'm thinking, because if you've got somebody at the center who's finding it difficult to think those things through, they might not accept that if they change one thing in the business, then it might change something else in a different part of the business. And that's what I wanted to explore today with a little bit with your help. And I know we've only skimmed the surface. Well, what I will be asking you for is, if that is a earnest and wholesome mission to try and understand the connectedness of the different things that we're trying to do, particularly in delivery, but a little bit in marketing as well. And I didn't get on to, Tracy, your kind of environmental factors, how it's changing the way we work at home. We haven't had time for that, but I think there's an element of, in the management and administration of our time, how we can help with that. And I love a pattern. So if we can try, if I can quarry or harvest some patterns from this using your advice and ideas in the text chat, also the way you've described what you are trying to achieve, if I can somehow capture that in a way that other people find useful, then that's kind of what I'm trying to do to help myself and others around me as well. So I think for time, I want to end quite promptly. We've just overrun the 1:45. I hope you feel that that mission and that objective is at least kind of understood, and with your help, I'd like to pursue it further. Thank you for taking part and going along with the hourglass, the breakout rooms, the text chat. These are all things I'm trying out to try and make our time more effective. And I will be asking you for some feedback. So have a great weekend. Travel around your house with care. And you probably end up back at the same spot with some more biscuits. And I hope your grooming and hair gel work out better than mine are. And look after yourselves. And I will chat to you in due course. Look after yourselves. Take care.